Today, joined on the phone by Aubrey Powell, author of the new book, Vinyl Album Cover Art. He's the man responsible for so many iconic album covers over the years, everything from Dark Side of the Moon to Led Zeppelin's Houses of the Holy. And today we're talking about, again, his new book, Vinyl Album Cover Art. Aubrey, it's great to be speaking with you.
Yes, and with you too. It's a pleasure.
Well, you have done some incredible work in your career. Can you tell us a bit about your new book, Vinyl Album Cover Art?
This is a book which is a celebration of 50 years' worth of work, and it's primarily between 1967 and 1982, which was the heyday of the vinyl world, in my opinion. This was when albums sold in millions and millions and millions, and it was a time when album covers were given phenomenal importance and significance in giving a clue as to what a band was about, and that was why I worked for people like Paul McCartney, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Genesis, Peter Gabriel, etc., because they were open to suggestions of interesting ideas and surreal designs that often had very little to do with the music or the lyrics, but played an important role in their image. And it was my privilege to work with all these extraordinary artists.
Yeah, a lot of the times before that, the album cover is mostly just pictures of the band themselves. How did you wind up in this line of work, firstly, and I guess come up with the idea to do something different?
To be honest with you, the person that really started this off was in March 1968, who was Peter Blake, who designed Sgt. Pepper for the Beatles. And Storm Thorgerson and myself in Hipgnosis, we realized that you could do anything on album covers if you wanted to, if he could do that. So we immediately started thinking differently, laterally thinking, not thinking about, what's going to sell the record, but what would be interesting to put on the record as a surreal design. And Pink Floyd in 1968 gave us the opportunity to design Saucerful of Secrets, which is their second album. And as soon as we did that, which was very different, it was based on Marvel comics and spacey kind of imagery of planets and sort of montage of alchemy and all sorts of things that were currently very popular and being spoken about at that time. It led on immediately to us working for Mark Bolan for the Pretty Things, etc., etc. And then 6 years later, we created Dark Side of the Moon for Pink Floyd. And in that same year, we did House of the Holy for Led Zeppelin and Band on the Run for Paul McCartney, and our career just rocketed. Suddenly, we were being accepted as bona fide surrealist photo designers, and were creating art as opposed to just a kind of what I would call a simple album cover.
Yeah, definitely. Your work was on probably the bedroom walls of just about every kid in the country and overseas as well. So it's definitely an influence on everybody for sure.
Well, it seems also that the younger generation now is very interested in this resurgence of vinyl again. But what that's done is made them look back in a retrospective way. And I think this is why this book of Hipgnosis is an important book, because it really covers a great spectrum of work that we did during that 15-year period. And you've got to remember that at that time, albums like Dark Side of the Moon were selling 65 million. And so money was sloshing around in the music industry. And so we were able to indulge ourselves in creating art that we wanted to do. You know, if I wanted to go to Hawaii to shoot a photograph for a band, I would just say that's where this has got to be shot. If I wanted to go to Australia to shoot, a picture of a desert, then the band would say yes. It was a very different period of time to the record business now, which actually, of course, as we know, is kind of impoverished in terms of CD sales or record sales or whatever. And so we were very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time to create these kinds of designs.
So do you get much direction from the bands as far as what they're looking for, or do you kind of just come up with whatever you'd like?
No, funnily enough, very rarely did we get direction from the band at all. Mostly they left us to our own devices. And I have to say that most of the artists that I worked for became lifelong friends. I mean, last night I was with David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, and 4 nights ago I was with Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. I'm still very close and very tight-knit as a result of us working on these album covers in the 1970s. And I have to say that the trust that they imparted to us was extraordinary. We'd come up with an idea, and they would just say, I mean, Led Zeppelin, for example, would say, okay, off you go away and do it. And so would Pink Floyd. Somebody like Peter Gabriel would probably be different because he wanted to be actively involved in the process of creating the cover. He would always come to the photo shoots. He always wanted to be there. He wanted to have a conversation, a dialogue, a confrontation. He wanted adversity. He enjoyed the banter and the excitement of doing the cover and wanted to be intrinsically involved. Paul McCartney, on the other hand, would say, let's have a look and see what you've got, and we'd show him half a dozen ideas, and he'd say, but I have an idea I'd like to show you. So we'd say, well, and then he'd say, well, I tell you what, why don't we do your idea and my idea, and we'll see what's best. And inevitably, we'd do both, come back, and he'd say, see, I told you so, man. My idea was better. So, it varied as according to the client that we had as to how we got along. But we were very much like the fifth wheel on the car. We were like a part of the inner circle, the team, and there was this tremendous trust in us to come up with ideas for them. And that was a supreme privilege. It really was.
Yeah, definitely iconic album work over the years. I would say my personal favorite, probably Black Sabbath's Technical Ecstasy. I always thought that was such an interesting cover.
Well, that's an interesting story, too. Black Sabbath Technical Ecstasy. I went to see the band at Tony Iommi's house up in the north of England. And when I got there, the three members of the band were there, but Ozzy was not. And suddenly, Ozzy burst through the door, all in black glasses, exactly as you imagine him to be. And he was a little worse for wear. And we'd already chosen which cover we liked. And he said, what's happening here? And I said, we've chosen an album cover. And he said, which cover? Is it that one? And I said, yes. And he said, good. That's the one I like too. And then immediately began fighting with the other band members. I mean, really aggressively. And the manager ushered me out of the room. And he said to me, I think that went rather well, don't you? And I said, what are you talking about? They're all fighting. And he said, no, we got an album cover out of it. That was the most important thing. So there were moments of humor as well as adversity within creating these kind of album covers.
Excellent. Well, Aubrey, I know we've run out of time. The new book, I should say, Vinyl Album Cover Art, available now. It was an honor to be speaking with you today. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.
And again, that was Aubrey Powell. His new book, Vinyl Album Cover Art, is available now. Basically, if you owned an album in the late 60s or into the 70s, you probably had some of his artwork on the cover.